Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm also joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. We have a great show lined up for you. We have a guest coming on momentarily, just a little bit. You're going to have to wait a little bit. Matt Valdovinos is going to be joining us. Self-proclaimed drip connoisseur and O-line expert is going to be joining us a little bit later on, so we can't wait to get with you with that. But this is our first episode since the Burgundy and Gold Globes happened.
What's
and
that?
you guys nominated us for the best fan podcast. So without further ado, thank you, everybody. I can't thank you guys enough. I've had a crazy weekend, but I still haven't been able to really absorb what that really truly means. But my goodness, was my phone blowing up on Thursday night.
Oh yeah, that was as soon as we won. Winners called me, and he was just like, "You did it." And I was like, yes, I did. He was like, you guys got to celebrate tomorrow. I was like, yes, we do. And then I was like, no, I can. I forgot because James has a COVID test early in the morning. Then we have to quarantine for his procedure today. Tight. So I haven't even gotten to celebrate, but we're celebrating here.
And I like to say that the Mount Rushmore of fan podcasts, the Big Douglas Show, the H2VR podcast, and the DC Tweet Team Pod with Andy Burrows. Congratulations to you guys for being nominated. The fact that we were even in the discussion with y'all means a lot. You know, we're all friends one another, and it's really cool that
we all run ideas off each other and work with each other. We're always on each other's shows and stuff.
Yeah, and I like to say, dude, this is the best fan base in all of sports.
Not only that, it's the best fan podcast. So I'm sorry for keeping on cutting you off, Kyle. I'm just excited, you know.
I know. Dude, it's a big accomplishment. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. And the crazy thing is, like, everyone made such a big deal about it. You know, like, I was worried because I was texting with Keith, and I was telling him, like, dude, like, the one thing I'm worried about with everyone flipping out about the awards is them canceling the awards next year. Like,
yeah, thanks, Rev T.
Come on. But, like, seriously, though, like, I was kind of blown about that. I was like, dude, you guys are doing too much, you know? But seriously, though, I want to thank you two especially because, you know, I'm a hard person to work with, and you two being able to be here every show, consistent as all heck, and being able to be here with this is phenomenal because you guys did a great job. There's a reason why you're here. Reed, you're one of the funniest in the business. Like the Colonel says, you should be on SNL. And then with Hall,
thank you, Colonel.
And Hall, you being Hall Stradamus, your takes are spot on all the time.
Always right.
Yeah, all the time, dude.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Kyle, though, don't forget, you are the engine behind this machine.
Right.
If it wasn't for you, me and Hall would be like, we're good.
Also, big congratulations and thank you to Winners and Josh for all that they do for helping us get this thing going. You know, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes you guys don't know, and they do so much to help us up and running. So again, please, I want to thank all of you for giving us this opportunity. I wish that we could have done an episode sooner to kind of say thank you to everybody. You know, when I did that thank you video, there was just so much going on at that moment. I didn't really know what to say. I had to get it within 2 minutes and 10 seconds, so I kind of was all over the place. But I hope I did justice with everyone because the HUVR pod, the DC Tweet Team pod, they all deserved the spotlight and to be chosen.
Oh, yeah. Any single one of them could have justified won.
Any podcast, any fan podcast.
There were so many of them too that could have just as easily been where we were that were nominated. I mean, that deserved it just as much. I mean, there's some Washington football has the best fan podcast in the league, hands down. I don't care what anybody says. I don't see Ravens fans doing this. I don't see any Eagles fans. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Their products nowhere near what Washington football fan podcasts are. So
yeah, and that's what I was telling Keith. You know, like really, motivation drives society. And the fact that I want the awards to continue because it kind of pushes everyone to be the best. And if we're all pushing to be the best, it's only going to create better content and a product for the team that deserves it, to be perfectly honest, of where they are right now. So I want to thank you, everyone. Continue kicking ass, everyone out there. You guys are amazing. We do it because of you guys. Now, the latest news that came out today, J.J. Watt surprised everyone by picking the Arizona Cardinals and wearing number 99. Hall, what was your immediate reaction? Do you think that was the right move for J.J. Watt?
I actually just heard a great take earlier on FS1 where Greg Jennings, he's an analyst for FS1 now, and he was like, Pretty much. Or was it LeVar? No, it was LeVar Arrington, actually, surprisingly.
Oh, LeVar had a good take. That's crazy.
Yeah, he actually has his own radio show on FS1 Radio, Fox
Good
Sports
for
Radio.
LeVar.
Yeah, man, he's doing his thing now. But he was like, pretty much, long story short, he could have went to Buffalo Bills. It was reported that the Bills, the Titans, a couple other teams that are like potential the Chiefs are like Super Bowl contenders. They were pretty much offering him the same amount of money, the same amount of years. But it was more about, yeah, does JJ probably want to get a ring and compete for a Super Bowl? Of course. But it was more about his comfortability, what he feels comfortable with. He was like, he's played in the Dome in Houston his whole career. He's played in warm weather. All those places that I just named that are Super Bowl contenders, those are all cold weather places. Arizona, obviously, is a warm weather place. He was like, he's thinking about the back end of his career, retirement, further like business endeavors. Arizona is a perfect place for that. Arizona is one of those up and coming, booming, like new West Coast like cities and towns where everyone's moving to, retiring to, stuff like that. So I was like, damn, that's actually a pretty thoughtful take, and I never really like thought about it like that, because usually whenever guys like that are play at the highest level, superstar type players, when they shake loose from a team, it's usually to go try to win a Super Bowl, compete for a Super Bowl, and try to like etch their career even more further down the line. But hey, I respect JJ for going to Arizona. I know if it was me, I'm trying to get the ultimate goal, which is compete for a championship. I wouldn't have chose personally Arizona, but like I said, more power to him. And Chandler Jones coming off the edge is going to be a deadly duo.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you think about Arizona, you don't really take into consideration their defense and how good they really are with Buda Baker, in that back end. And then with Chandler Jones, who I think nearly had like 20 sacks not too long ago. Yep. That dude is phenomenal. And I know Pittsburgh fans are kind of blown. I got some Pittsburgh fans in our family that really expected him to go there, to be teaming up with his two other brothers and TJ Watt and the fullback. I forget his name, the forgotten Watt.
It's like Derek and
Derek Watt. Yeah, and but look, the Browns were huge in the mix. That would have been a smart move by them. And then Buffalo was in the mix as well. But him going to Arizona, I thought was crazy, because that division, I think, is going to be probably the most difficult division.
That too,
year.
Exactly, yeah.
I know the San Francisco 49ers could easily be the worst team in that division this year, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, but if you also think about it, they got Nick Bosa coming back. Reportedly they were they were making calls about like Teddy Bridgewater, so they're looking to maybe upgrade a quarterback as far as like Kyle Shanahan type of upgraded quarterback, like a high-level game manager pretty much. I know there was 5 teams reported to be calling about Deshaun Watson, possibly. San Francisco's probably in those 5. So you had a guy like Deshaun Watson, even if they're running back with Jimmy G. This is a team that was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They still have a top-flight defense. They have pretty good weapons in Ayuk and Deebo Samuels that are young guys. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan in that running game and his offense is pretty much plug and play at the running back position, but they still got great running backs. So I definitely think that Arizona is still the worst team in that division, seeing if San Francisco can get back fully healthy and do their thing. But even if you add someone like J.J. Watt, they're still probably like the third best defense in that division in front of Seattle. So it's like, it was an upgrade as far as like star personnel and like star power, and like they're going to get a lot of more eyes, a lot of more primetime games, obviously, because they're an upcoming team. Now they got a guy like J.J. Watt to go with DeAndre Hopkins, Buda Baker, Kyler Murray. They got some superstars over there and some budding stars. But like you said, that division is probably, and not even probably, that division is going to be the toughest one in football. And I just don't see them, even with the expanded 17 playoffs, I don't see them maybe even sniffing a wild card spot next year.
Yeah, and regarding the newest news that just came out not too long ago, minutes ago, the Vikings have released Kyle Rudolph, who I think they gave.
I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, they gave a contract extension to him not too long ago. I think it was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years. I think
he's fallen off. Irv Smith now is a starting tight end there. So should Washington target Kyle Rudolph, Hall?
I would say no, just for the simple fact that I'm not gonna say he's over the hill as far as like his football career, but he's definitely not the Kyle Rudolph that was red zone threat, a middle of the field threat, a guy that was between the 20s, that was maybe your 3rd or 4th option on the offense. It definitely, like I said, a deadly red zone threat. I feel like Logan Thomas is pretty much a young Kyle Rudolph in the making right now.
Yep.
And if we're gonna add or upgrade anything at tight end, I would like to get like an athletic guy, like maybe like a Jonnu Smith or something like that. So if we're gonna or Hunter Henry exactly. So if we're gonna add a tight end, I want a more athletic guy, a younger guy, a more speed guy, and that's not really Kyle Rudolph at this point.
No, it's not. And look, I was a big Kyle Rudolph mark. I actually kept him 1 year in fantasy.
Yeah,
I thought that he
was a great pickup or great keep too.
I thought that he was going to really excel with Kirk Cousins, but looks that wide receiving core was just so good that he got overshadowed, and his kind of red zone dominance never really came into fruition. So no, I don't believe Washington should target Kyle Rudolph. Let him go and pick and choose where he wants to go. Wouldn't surprise me if he finds himself with New England or possibly San Francisco. You know what I mean?
It's so funny you said New England because I was like, he seems like a Patriot to me.
Yeah, he does, to be perfectly honest. That red zone kind of threat. So that would make a lot of sense to me. But another guy that was released today was Kyle Vinoy. The Miami Dolphins, after giving him a 4-year, $51 million contract, made the cut with him. And even though he had $20 million guaranteed, it looks like he's going to be a free agent. I'm not sure how you feel about Kyle Vinoy, Hall, but I would absolutely love to see Washington target him.
I would love to see them target him. I don't know what his whole contract is going to be as far as like him getting cut and released, and
it should be cheap. I will say that.
I was going to say I'm pretty sure they had to pay him out some X amount of money for cutting him on a first year out of 4-year deal. So hopefully he'll come in at a cheap target. I know that they were throwing that around JP Finley and Brian Mitchell on 106 earlier, and JP brought up that a young rookie, Kyle Vinoy, was drafted by none other than Marty Mayhew. So it would make sense for them to maybe kick the tires on him, see what's up. He had a pretty decent year last year. I think that he had like 6 sacks, a couple forced fumbles. I think like maybe between 40 to 50 tackles himself or something like that. So he definitely would be an upgrade for this linebacking core. He could definitely, if not be a starter, be definitely a great rotational player. And yeah, I would love for Kyle Vinoy or for them to kick the tires on Kyle Vinoy.
Yeah, I would love to be able to bring him into the building. He brings a lot of versatility. He can blitz from the linebacker position. He's not a pass rusher like some do think that he is. He's a coverage linebacker. He does really well in the 4-3. Last time the Patriots were in the Super Bowl, Kyle Vinoy was that leader on defense next to what's his name? The linebacker that opted out last year.
Oh, Dante Hightower.
Playing next to him, he's a very good linebacker, and if you're looking for veteran leadership, a guy that's willing to work and do well, I would absolutely love to bring in Kyle Vinoy because he does kind of bring that leadership aspect where he was in New England. He knows what's good. He knows the work ethic. If you blossom in New England, that means you know what you're doing, and especially with Bill Belichick trusting you, that's to me tells me that's a guy that you want on your defense. He's not just going to take it just to do it. You know what I mean? So, in my opinion, I would absolutely love to see Kyle Vinoy added to the equation here. I think that he would bring a lot to the table because, like I said, he can blitz at that 4-3 spot. He could be your strong side linebacker, and you have Cole Holcomb as the weak side. You're still missing a middle linebacker there, I know, with John Bostic and Cleek Hudson still there. But I would absolutely love to bring Kyle Vinoy in. I think that would be really, really smart on their part. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely like all the stuff on the field, just spot on, and then off the field stuff, he's a great locker room guy, great leader. I think he can bring some even more leadership to this defense, and not only just defense, but this overall new culture change that Ramon Rivera has already implemented and pretty much trying to further even forward. So yeah, like I said, for them to kick the tires on Kyle Vinoy would not only be smart, but it would be a great move.
Yeah, and latest news that came out regarding the Washington football team, before we get into Alex Smith, of course, was that Marcus Mariota, Washington had made calls for Marcus Mariota, but they have cooled off. And I think there has a lot to do with the fact that Ron Rivera was on vacation and he's finally in the building. He's back at work. There's been calls being made. Hall, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's the right move?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that Ron and Scott, they want a guy that's pretty mobile, that can run around, scramble, make off-script plays outside the pocket, maybe run a little option plays here and there, maybe little QB keepers and power, stuff like that. Obviously, we saw that last year with Taylor Heineke. That's why they're bringing him back. I would assume they're probably going to re-sign Kyle Allen to a pretty cheap deal. And that's why I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit. That's why they got rid of Alex Smith, because he's not mobile anymore, per se, or like he was before. So, yeah, I definitely think it was the right move to acquire into him and see what the cost would be. And I also think it was the right move to back off of that, because everyone knows that's been reported a couple weeks ago that Las Vegas Raiders are in cap salary hell right now, and he's probably going to be a cut casualty. So why spend draft capitals or whatever for him when you know that in the next upcoming week or so, he's going to be probably this week, at the end of this week, maybe beginning of next week, he'll most likely be cut, and you can get him off the free agent scrap heap for a very much cheaper contract because the contract it was a $10 million base, but if you make him the starter, which if you trade for him, you're probably going to not give him the starting job, but he's probably more than likely has a foot up on the job. And if you do that, there's a bunch of escalators in his contract that makes it up to 20, 22 million or something like that. And Marcus Mariota is not a $20+ million quarterback. So, yeah, I definitely think that they're going to readdress that come cut season whenever he gets cut, and we'll see what it is from there.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you. It was the right move. We talked about this on the pod a couple weeks ago, where why would you trade assets, valuable assets, because a lot of people were talking about, a third rounder, fourth rounder from Mariota, when all you could possibly do is wait for him to get cut because the Raiders want to save that $10 million. They need to. They could cut 3 players right now and save $26 million, and I believe Marcus Mariota was one of them. So in my opinion, why would you trade assets for something that they already want to do? You want to force that issue. You want to say, okay, then cut him. And I know people are going to say, well, why would he choose Washington when he's a free agent? Where else would he have the ability to start on a good team?
Yep.
There's nowhere else besides Washington. There's no other team right now that is starving for a quarterback that would allow Marcus Mariota to go and do well. You're going to tell me Chicago in that division?
They just announced that Nick Foles is going to be the starter going into next year too. So, I mean, hey.
There you go right there.
That one's sewed up too. So,
49ers, the 49ers already said that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starter next season. So, in my opinion, it would be much smarter to go down that route. But that being said, I'm still not excited about Marcus Mariota. Yeah. I don't care what anyone says. I really am not.
As you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be like, oh, we're about to get Marcus Mariota. Like, what? Maybe if this was like the Marcus Mariota, like all hyped up coming out of college, like number 2 overall pick, just got finished balling out at University of Oregon for the last like 2-3 years in a row, you might be like, oh, man, we could do some things, especially if you have this defense already lined up. If you're going to acquire the weapons that everyone thinks they're going to at least try to acquire this offseason, you might be like, all right, we might be able to do some things. Now it's kind of like you've pretty much seen the ceiling of Marcus Mariota. You know what he is. He's pretty much he can be a game manager he's pretty much Ryan Fitzpatrick, but mobile. He can either throw you in some games and manage you the most and not going to turn the ball over for you and he'll keep you in the game, or he's going to fumble the ball a lot. He's going to throw a lot of picks. He's going to keep you out. He's going to pretty much throw you or run you out the game, and you're going to take a lot of L's. So, yeah, definitely a bridge guy if you're going to sign him. Anything.
The one thing for me is, like, I know everyone keeps saying that Marcus Mariota is a good fit here, but he doesn't know the offense like Taylor Heineke would know. In my opinion, I just don't think it's that smart of a move. Giving assets to somebody that you don't know, who doesn't have the resume to come in and pick your offense up and do really well. I'm sorry, his resume does not blow off the screen. I think that Ron Rivera played that the right way. Play the slow game. 100%. Don't look over dramatic. Don't look drastic. Don't be like, oh, we're panicking. We need somebody. No, man, calm down. Chill out. But that being said, Alex Smith, a lot has come about over the past week. He had the GQ interview. And then I saw somebody said that I saw this one report saying Alex had a burner account on Twitter and made a remark saying that you'd rather sound like a drunk than a racist regarding the Washington Warriors name than the Redskins. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Alex Smith is not the type that has a burner account on Twitter. Like, I don't know.
Apparently, this was like a whole campaign kind of thing. Like, it was monitored, and he was just it was just something he was doing. I don't know. It's like an undercover boss kind of thing.
True. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Look, I don't want to bash Alex. I love what he did. The comeback story was great. He won 5 games for us last year. He pretty much willed us into the playoffs. Not really willed us, but he pretty much managed us into the playoffs at the quarterback position. So I don't know, man. It's just weird. It's crazy. It was the right move to cut him.
Yeah, but at the same time, to me, saying I understand, like, you can have your personal feelings. You can say that the name is racist, whatever have you. But to, like, say stuff like that is kind of ridiculous because, look, I understand you got traded here, but you could have said something at any point in time.
Exactly.
And now you're doing it. And I think it has a lot to do with him trying to get the hell out of here.
You're
and
cashing them checks. You weren't saying nothing.
Exactly. And so that's where I know John Keim kind of reiterated what you have said multiple times regarding where Alex Smith could end up. And the latest news was that Alex Smith is expected to be released this week, and he would save $14.7 million in cap. And I think that runs up Washington to around $53 million in cap space for the offseason, which is great news, given the fact that, Ronald Darby is up for a contract. Looks like Brandon Scherff is up for a contract, and they're going to need a quarterback, whether they go through the draft or they get one of these veterans in free agency or via trade. I love the position that this team is in right now because if you're in the need for a quarterback, I think this is the best situation you could possibly be in. But this episode is called All Good Things, ... meaning all good things must come to an end. And as much as it sucks to see Alex go out this way, I'm happy for all the work that he's put in, what he was able to get back here. But it's a business, man. And there was no way that they were going to bring you back for $24 million. There's just no possible way that was ever going to happen.
No. I mean, look, you said it best. I appreciate what he did here over the 3-year span, 11-5 as a starter. Like I said, 1-5-1-4 his last year. Managed us into the playoffs as far as like from an offensive standpoint, even though the offense was downright disgusting to say the least. But he came in, did his thing. He motivated the team. He knew how to get the offense in and out of plays and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, good luck to him wherever he goes. I'm sure it'll probably, if I had to bet my money, it'd be Jacksonville. Like I said before, Trevor Lawrence getting that offseason surgery. The timeline says he'll be back between August and September, but he'll probably be back before then because young people heal crazy nowadays. So that gives a chance for Alex Smith to come in, get ahead of him on the offense. He already knows Urban Meyer's offense. Urban Meyer coached him in college all those many years ago. So I definitely think that that's a great landing spot. He can mentor Trevor Lawrence like all these talking heads are out there saying now. So, yeah, I definitely think that's a great fit for him. It's a nice warm weather city. He knows the system. He knows the coaching staff as far as Urban Meyer. And, he can get a chance to either start a couple games while Trevor Lawrence gets ready, or he can play backup to Trevor Lawrence and potentially get his start in a couple games at some point in the season. So, good luck to Alex Smith, but it was definitely a great move in cutting him, a smart move in cutting him, and wherever that money goes is going to go to a much better player than Alex Smith.
Yeah, and look, I know
at this point in his career,
one undercover team was the Chicago Bears, and I know that you just said that they announced that Nick Foles will be the starter next season, but I feel like that would be smart, linking up with Matt Nagy, Kansas City's old offensive coordinator that knows him very well. But at this point, I think this is why Alex was trying to force his way out. He was trying to be able to get into that market to see who would want him. It sucks to see that it is what it is, but it's a business, dude. You can't. We all knew this was coming, like you said.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, everybody. We are joined by Matt Valdovinos.
Hello.
What's up, dude? I love your bio because it says drip connoisseur. Absolutely,
do my best.
Absolutely love it. And you're also an O-line expert, Matt. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Reed is attending to his kid. He'll be back in a second. It's all right. But
understandable.
One thing I want to ask you: you consider yourself an O-line expert, so I wanted to ask you, Brandon Scherff, one of the biggest question marks for Washington in this offseason thus far. Do you think that the Washington football team should re-sign Brandon Scherff to a long-term deal, or are you in the mindset of letting him test or franchise tagging him?
I don't want to franchise tag him. I think that just pauses the situation entirely. I think it just delays the inevitable. So I do think it should just be down to either let him go get that comp pick, or I mean, I can understand a tag and trade, but I don't think any team would really be interested in doing that because at that point you kind of just know that the team's not going to have him moving forward. But as long as the number's not something outrageous, I'm pretty pro bringing back Brandon Scherff, and I've been that way since last year too, going into last year. I still remember Washington fans telling me like Wes Martin was more than viable to replace Brandon Scherff. You didn't need to give him the big contract, and we saw where that ended up. So I definitely think, I mean, Brandon Scherff, when you talk about players, I'm so sorry, when you talk about players that Washington has drafted,
that has become as successful, it's really Trent Williams, Brandon Scherff, and then Jonathan Allen is probably on the way. And Ryan Kerrigan as well in 2011. But I'm a big fan of maintaining homegrown talent. Obviously, it didn't work out with Trent Williams. We had him for, we did give him a second contract. It's just that things started to fizzle out. As long as Scherff's number isn't more than like 14 and a half per year, I'm pretty comfortable with doing everything they can to bring him back. I think he's so important to the line. I think the line was substantially better than people thought it was going to be last year, mostly because he was, obviously wasn't healthy for the full year, but when he was phenomenal. He was a first team All-Pro, first time Washington's done that in a while. So I definitely, I'm a huge fan of Scherff and what he does, and I think he's super important to the offensive nucleus.
Yeah, so we had Logan Paulson on not too long ago, and he kind of talked about Brandon Scherff being a All-Pro and kind of talked about how like the injuries around the league kind of added to his ability to be the All-Pro. So do you think, like, barring those injuries, do you think that Brandon Scherff is playing on that All-Pro level, or is it like Logan Paulson saying where all those injuries kind of inflated him?
No, I don't think. He's a guy who's been a top 5 guard in the league since he's come in, to be honest. Probably his second year, I would say, is when he was entered that top 5 conversation. He does it all, right? He's a strong pass protector. He's arguably the best run blocking guard in the NFL. He does everything he needs. And on top of that, he's the most experienced player on the offensive line. Morgan Moses wasn't a starter up until the year that Brandon Scherff came in, as well as 4 years at Iowa. So, when you talk about a guy who you want to maintain consistency on the offensive line, like that's the biggest thing that you always want. Obviously, you want to look for upgrades, but you're not going to find an upgrade over Brandon Scherff. And you're not going to find a deal that's worth, I don't think you're going to bring in a guard for $5 million who's going to give you close enough to a replication of Brandon Scherff's play where that's warranted, right? So I don't think you're going to find a guy. Obviously, Wes Schweitzer is kind of an outlier, and no one expected him to come in and play as well as he can. And I'm not 100% comfortable assuming that Wes Schweitzer and Cornelius Lucas are going to be as good as they were last year, this upcoming year. So, I'm doing everything I can if I'm Washington to just make sure that Brandon Scherff is here in the building for the foreseeable future. You got Chase Roulier locked down. So, I think just having Brandon Scherff just makes too much sense, especially from like a leader and a vocal aspect. He's a big guy there. The team loves him. He wants to be in Washington. So ideally they bring him back, but like, I understand the numbers, but at 14.5 is kind of where I'm capping it. And I think he'll get something around there or under that.
Right. Yeah. Look, I'm a big proponent of re-signing Scherff. I think that one of the biggest things that this team needs going forward is offensive line continuity. You look at some of the best teams in the league, they've had that offensive line continuity. They've had depth at the position. So definitely got to re-sign the All-Pro. Sticking with the offensive line, I saw that you're a draft analyst on your Twitter bio. Who's a guy that you're looking into in the draft as far as offensive lineman goes that maybe could be in play for Washington and maybe the first couple rounds?
Well, first, the big one that I'm hoping for at 19 is Christian Darrisaw. That's my guy. It's been my guy for a while out here at Virginia Tech. I'm just a huge fan. He really does give me Trent vibes. He's not that same 1% athlete that Trent Williams is, but he's not super far off. He's my OT2, and the separation between Darrisaw and Sewell for me is less than the separation between Darrisaw and my OT3, Sam Cosmi. So if Darsaw's there at 19, I'm running to the podium. I love the pick. I think he's the top 5 player in this class, maybe number 6, I think, on my board. So I would love that value there. He's right here in Virginia Tech, right? So, there's a lot that makes sense there. And on top of that, some people think that with him, you maybe want to get him into the system for a couple weeks or a year before he takes play. I think he can just play day one. But if you want to do that, obviously we saw Cornelius Lucas play good football last year anyways. So you're not super, super stressed about putting him on the field immediately.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people have put Elijah Vera Tucker in between there. I know you just said between Penei Sewell and Christian Darrisaw, it really isn't as much as people think it is. So with Elijah Vera Tucker, do you not think that he's better than Christian Darrisaw? Because that's what a lot of the draft experts are putting out there.
Personally, I don't. I do think AVT is really, really good. I actually grade him as a guard. Not because I don't think he can play tackle. I just don't think he possesses the range of motion that I would prefer at tackle.
That's how I feel about Alex Leatherwood too. Yeah,
exactly. I think Vera Tucker is a little bit more coordinated than Leatherwood is and a little more consistent. But there are times where he struggles to get to a spot in the arc. I think he's probably better suited inside. He played inside for his the majority of his career at USC before this past season. So it's not like I'm projecting that. It's a lot of just, I saw the film. I really, really loved the film at guard. I'm usually a pretty big guy of, okay, tackles are tackles, but technically Vera Tucker's a guard who became a tackle. So this is just putting him back at guard. I think he can play tackle if a team asks him to, but if I was Washington and I'm thinking AVT, my gut reaction would be because they're either letting Scherff walk or they're not comfortable with Schweitzer being the guy full time. As far as other guys go, at 19, I don't love a lot of people. Like, I'm okay with Slater. I'm okay with Cosme. I'm okay with Darsaw at 19 for tackles. If Scherff walks, then you're starting to get into that interior offensive line. I don't love the class a ton. So someone like AVT, or if I would rather take a tackle and play them at guard than take any of the top guards, to be 100% honest. Right. But as far as day 2 goes, like a pick 51, if White Davis falls there, I love it. That's right around where I'll start being cool for Quinn Miners, Super Bowl standout. Really, really loved him. Trey Smith, I'm cool with. But I mean, I think, honestly, I don't think Washington should be really entertaining the thought of drafting too many linemen, because I think the depth is already pretty quality when you have guys like Sadiq Charles. You went out and drafted Keith Ishmael, right? Obviously, Wes Martin has played good football at some point in his NFL career. I don't understand why it got so drastically bad for him last year, but ideally he can be a spot starter. I mean, that's what you drafted for him. That's what you thought he could be after his rookie season. But so I'm really not a huge proponent of Washington. Yeah, you can get a guy on day 3 just to fill out some depth. But as far as guys that you expect to play, I really think one of the top tackles at 19 is the only spot where you're looking at it and you're like, okay, this is where we can get someone to truly upgrade our offensive line. Otherwise, I'm very comfortable just bringing everyone who's there back. Or I'm also cool with Trent in free agency, but, that seems like a volatile subject.
I was actually just about to ask you, there's a couple of free agent linemen on the market this upcoming free agency cycle. What are your thoughts on Trent coming back? Because I know that I saw something that it was floated out there that he might want to come back if it was like the right situation. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I think that ship has already been sailed.
Yeah, I don't think he will, but you would not catch me. I would rather. This is kind of a weird thing to talk about, but I would rather have Trent Williams in free agency and let Brandon Scherff walk than have Brandon Scherff resign Brandon Scherff.
That's not a bad take, actually.
Just because I mean, Trent Williams is arguably the best left tackle in football, and left tackle is the most important position on the line. I love Brandon Scherff, but we're talking. You can get a guard on day, and now I feel like I'm arguing against bringing back Brandon Scherff. But with Trent Williams, I would give him that huge contract just because I think that position is so important. Obviously, I don't think that's plausible. I really just don't think he wants to come back to DC until he's retired and is in the Ring of Fame or whatever. Right. But I mean, I definitely wouldn't. You wouldn't catch me contesting it if it happened.
Yeah. Now, Matt, we created a new segment called the Hot Seat, and what happens with this segment is you can bring back one player, you can bring in one player on free agency, and at 19, you can either select at 19, trade up for a player, or trade back. And what player would you pick? So pick those 3 for us.
So dream wise, like best case scenario, we're bringing back Scherff, we're signing Dak Prescott. And at 19, we're getting like Rashad Bateman or Christian Darsaw, one of those two. More realistically, I would say probably bringing back Scherff. A free agent I would love. Justin Simmons, if he hits the market, would be huge. I just want a new Levante David if he hits the market. It's kind of hard without knowing everyone who's going to be there. Allen Robinson, right? Some of those top guys at the positions that they're just so desperate for. And then obviously Dak as well. I'm cool with Curtis Samuel, but I would probably say Justin Simmons is my assuming Dak stays in Dallas for the foreseeable, at least this upcoming year. I think there's a chance Justin Simmons hits, and I would love that. And then at 19, I think in that situation, if they don't go out and get number 1, I think Rashad Bateman is very much a possibility. I think they could also go linebacker. I'm not really sure what the team is viewing as far as how much they need to address that linebacker position. We saw, I don't know if they're going to be interested in Kyle Van Noy, who was just released. I don't know for sure, but I could see the team putting a lot of stock into that position that they've drafted, because Ron Rivera and Marty Herney in their time in Carolina put a lot of resources into those positions. So it'll be interesting to see, but that's probably where I would go.
Yeah, and then regards to the latest news that came out, that Washington is going to be releasing Alex Smith, if not today, in the next coming days, and with his GQ interview and everything. What's your kind of thought with this whole process?
With the GQ interview, it's so hard to convey tone through text or through message, through word, right? So I don't think Alex Smith was like intentionally belittling or scrutinizing the franchise or the team in any way. But I mean, I was hoping this was the case, to be honest. Like, I love Alex, I love everything he did, but he's not worth that price tag at the player he is. And honestly, he really wasn't. I'm kind of worried that he was still playing. There were times after a while where, they had to pull him out. And so I don't know if that's really the sign of someone who should be playing in the NFL. That really, really worries me just for his long-term health. Obviously, that's his decision to make and everything, but I think it's just the correct move for Washington. It just doesn't make sense to keep him on that price tag for the play you get from him.
Yeah, and then in regards to Taylor Heineke, it's a huge topic of discussion between everybody. Do you think that was the right move by Washington by re-signing Taylor to that contract, which is incentive-based, basically paying him possibly up to $4 million if he does start, get the job, and do it well?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, every contract in the NFL is incentive-based. Obviously, Some of the top players don't want that, but I would love to pay players for their production. Taylor, yeah, because technically, especially once they cut Alex Smith, Washington before that did not have a quarterback on their roster for next year. Kyle Allen's a restricted free agent, almost guaranteed to be back. But yeah, they didn't really have, obviously they're going to look at who they're going, but they didn't have a quarterback. So they, bringing back Heineke is like, okay, you did your thing. Obviously that was huge. We saw the playoff game. That was really, really fun. Here's what you got deserving of that. Now, if you want to make more, obviously go get that as well. And so I was fine with it. Obviously it's a little heavy on the pay for the 2 games he played for us, but it's a quarterback position. Marcus Mariota makes $20 million to play a game for the Raiders last year. So,
right. And speaking of Mariota, let me ask your opinion on this. If you had to rank, Cam, Mariota, Jameis Winston, or Darnold, which one are you going to have to pick from that group? And let's just say that they're all free agents, that you don't have
all free agents. Oh, okay. That's a little different then. Probably Jameis. Jameis is first, for sure. And then if they're all free agents, then probably Darnold, Cam, and then Mariota. Just because Darnold's so much younger, arm talent's better, right? But as far as the situations they're in right now, I'm super anti-trading anything for Darnold because I still don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. He hasn't done anything for me to see it and say, okay, I think he can do that play on a consistent basis. So whereas Cam, Marcus Mariota, a little bit better scheme fit, makes a little more sense. And then I think Jameis is probably just the top guy because I think he still has the youth argument because I still think he's only, 26 or 27. Still has great arm mobility. He's a smart dude. It's just the turnovers that are an issue. But to be honest, with the way the defense plays, a quarterback that turns the ball over, as long as they're putting points on the board, if you get 21 points and 2 interceptions from Jameis Winston, your defense could probably do enough. So yeah, Jameis Winston, I've kind of gotten on board lately. I've always been a big clowner of Jameis Winston just because I think it's really funny. He actually threw 30 interceptions in the season.
He's a goofy
but he's a talented guy. Yeah, he has played really good football. So yeah, if they're all free agents, Jameis, Darnold, Cam, Mariota. But as far as how it goes right now with trading for Darnold or trading for Mariota, I would rather just bring in Jameis or Cam via free agency. It just makes way more sense to me because I don't think the separation between the plays makes any sense, right? I don't think Darnold's going to be so much better than Cam that he would be worth draft capital. I would rather have Cam in a third than Darnold, for sure.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right. And sticking with the quarterback position, what's your view on the big 4 quarterbacks? I'm leaving Trevor Lawrence out of it, the Zach Wilsons, the Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. Say you're the Washington front office. Are you trying to trade up to get any of these 4 guys?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
As soon as one of Fields or Lance is on the board at 7, or Wilson, to be honest, one of those 3, if they're on the board at 7 after Philadelphia picks, I'm starting to make phone calls. I would be more aggressive to get Fields. I think he is far and away the best fit in the class for Washington. He is comfortably my QB2. I think he would be the best quarterback in probably 85% of the draft classes we've had in the past 20 years. I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. I know via all reports, all smoke, all rumors that Washington is as well. And so if we do see a couple teams start to let Justin Fields fall, I think he could go 2 still. So I'm not really banking on this at all. But I could definitely see Washington getting aggressive, especially if they don't bring in one of Cam, Marcus, Darnold, anyone like that. And they're kind of just sitting there with Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke. I definitely think that makes a ton of sense. as far as fits go, I think it goes Fields, Lance, Wilson. Mac Jones doesn't make any sense to me. I could see them taking him at 19 just because he's a quarterback. But my jaw would drop if he was traded up for at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past the team to take him at 19 because obviously Ron's in the whole new, but it's still the Washington football team. So, I always want to kind of approach with hesitation and caution. But I mean, if you get any of those three guys, Fields, Wilson, or Lance, I mean, I think you're instantly again competing in the NFC East. I think you've got a rookie of the year front runner. I think you've got go out, get a weapon. You've got a guy I think your Super Bowl window opens for 5 years minimum. So
hey, that's a smart move by you. And then last thing before I let you go, Matt, I really do appreciate your time.
Of course.
The name change. Do you have a favorite in mind?
I just want it to be something fun and original. I don't want it to be the Warriors just because I just with Golden State, with their prominence and what they do, it's just really hard for me to get on that bandwagon and be like, oh yeah, I'm a Warriors fan. Oh, Golden State, who's your favorite football team? I'm actually a Warriors fan, like a Washington Warriors fan. I also think alliteration is occasionally overrated. But yeah, I just want something new, fresh. I want the jerseys to be drippy. Like I need that. I need to look good. I'm glad they're keeping the colors because the color scheme's elite. But I just want to look good, right? So I need the logo to be hard. I need the name. The only reason I like the Red Wolves idea,
I knew you were going to say it. I was like, no, don't say it.
The only reason I like the Red Wolves idea is because I really like the idea of the stadium howling, but otherwise I'm cool off of it. Yeah, just give me something awesome, like something fun, unique that's not done before.
Right.
Anything like that, I'm more than happy with.
Yeah, and that's look, man, it's a good take. I can't argue with you there, but the Red Wolves, that's gotta.
I just want to howl, bro. That'd be like 120,000 people. That'd be crazy.
That's what I'm saying, dude. But you can do a bunch of things besides howling. Look, because at my alma mater, at my high school, it was the Coyotes, and they howled, and it's literally all the time, and it gets annoying after the third time. You're just over it at that point. And people get drunk and just like, oh.
True.
Me annoying as hell.
I mean, we all been to Washington games, I'm sure.
Exactly. Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight, brother.
Absolutely,
I really
guys,
do appreciate it. You bring a lot of aspects that I didn't think of regarding the O-line. So I really do appreciate you taking the time out, sir.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me on.
Of course,
yeah,
brother.
man. We gotta do it again sometime.
For sure. Whenever, just shoot me a DM. Have a good one, guys.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
You as well.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with Matt Valdovinos. Everyone knows about Matt, dude. He's such a good person to talk to on Twitter.
He had some pretty good takes on the O-line. He broke it down. Like, we didn't really have a lot of O-linemen on here. Come on, talk about the O-line because, it's not really the sexy position to talk about and really break down and get into. But I'm glad we can get somebody on that can talk about some upcoming prospects and as far as what we have now. So good to have him on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into our fan questions. The first one being, let's start with the Colonel. Will we draft the number 19 on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah? And will KPL, Kevin Pierre-Louis, be back? And would they be using Landon at the Mike position?
I guess I'll start from number 3 and work my way back. I do not think that they'll be using him per se at the Mike position, but I do think that depending on how healthy he is when he comes back, how his agility is, how his range of motion is, his movement is, I do think that they're going to use him in that I forget what they call it. It's like the hawk or whatever they call it, something like that, some type of animal.
Rhino?
Rhino, yeah, some type of the rhino position where they're going to have him in the box a lot, blitzing a lot, kind of the Tyrann Mathieu kind of position where you're in the box a lot. So I definitely think that's Landon Collins' future if he wants to be or stay with the team. Second question was,
will Kevin Pierre-Louis be back?
KPL. If he wants to take a vet minimum or like a really cheap deal like he did last year, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I know he's a really good special teams player. He had a pretty good PFF grade in a couple games last year.
Passing coverage was phenomenal. One of the best linebackers in the league.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely wouldn't be opposed to him coming back, being a rotational guy at the linebacker position. Obviously, year 2 in Jack Del Rio's system, I think that he would thrive a little bit more. And then, like I said, he can definitely contribute on special teams. And number 1, I definitely think that if Owusu is there, if he's not drafted anywhere before us at 19, like the Raiders or somebody like that, somebody that really needs defensive help.
Be my point.
Yeah, they really, really, really need defensive help. I know he looks like a John Gruden guy. He plays like a John Gruden guy. I'm sure that Mike Mayock is probably raving about him. If he was still at the NFL Network, that'd probably be one of his favorite players in the draft they'd be talking about, especially because he's a Notre Dame guy. So I definitely think that, yeah, with the Mike Mayock Notre Dame ties, and he loves the Notre Dame players, he looks like a John Gruden guy. That defense for Las Vegas is horrible. They need defensive talent.
Yep,
But
exactly.
if he somehow slips because they want to draft someone like Jalen Waddle, I would love the draft of Wasu. I think that he can be Ron Rivera's kind of Luke Kuechly, kind of Thomas Davis guy for the next 10 plus years going forward.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. If Micah Parsons is not there and the Raiders do draft Micah Parsons and Jeremiah Owusu does fall to 19, I don't expect him to in the slightest. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah offers a lot of versatility that a lot of defenses in this league covet, and he will be heavily drafted in this draft. That being said, if he is there 100%, pull the trigger. I think that's a perfect fit for you to be able to go and do that. With Kevin Pierre-Louis, I definitely think that he will be re-signed, given that the linebacking core is thin already, and you need depth, and he's not going to cost you a lot of money.
Yep.
So keep him, bring him back around. You know he did well last season, and you don't need to bank on him starting whatsoever. Now, the Colonel's next question is, he said, guys, please back me off this ledge. I can't shake the feeling that Mac Jones will be available at 19. He thinks it'll be a big mistake. Talk to me, Hall.
Man, there's been a lot of hype and a lot of build-up around Mac Jones. Me personally, just for the fit of the offense and really want to go with the offense, but then you turn around and you're like, Cam turned into that pocket guy. He was pretty efficient from the pocket, but he would still be able to be mobile. You see, the thing is, like I said, he's not really mobile enough to really kind of fit the scheme of the offense and where they want to go with this offense. So even if he was there at 19, which I don't predict he will be, just because he's a guy that's a high riser as far as the draft board goes. He went to the Senior Bowl, had a great week at the Senior Bowl. I think that he would have played in the game, not due to injury. He would have shown out. He would have overtook Kellen Mond for the MVP of the Senior Bowl. This is a guy that everyone's been raving about as far as him being able to read the field, go from like read 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 really quickly, process things really quickly. But with that all being said, I just don't think that he fits the scheme and what they want to do offensively in Washington. And it's okay. It's okay, Colonel. You can back off the ledge. He's not going to be in a burgundy and gold next year.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I don't think that he is a good fit. I don't think that he will do well in this offense, to be perfectly honest with you. It's one of these things where teams just all of a sudden start thinking these quarterbacks are a lot better than they are. You know, they have, like, people were talking about Jamie Newman being possibly selected in the second or third, which is ridiculous. It just this happens every draft season where everyone thinks these quarterbacks are a lot better than they are. And I really don't think that Mac Jones is going to show out like he did at Alabama, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, Tony Shivers, our next question, he asks, which tight ends in the draft do you like beyond Kyle Pitts? And I'll start with you, Hall.
Oh, man. I'm not going to lie. I haven't really dove deep into the tight ends yet, but what's the last name starts with an O, I think it was. The dude we just talked about like on Tuesday or like last week.
Kenny Yeboah?
Yeboah, yes, exactly. I know that he's been flashed around the screen a couple of times as highlights. Like I said, I haven't really dove deep into the tight ends yet outside of Kyle Pitts. Plan on doing that probably upcoming soon because the draft is coming up. But, yeah, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anyone. I've just been looking at the free agent tight ends, so haven't really focused on the draft so far.
I'll tell you right now, Tony, Brevin Jordan is a very, very good tight end.
Miami tight end, right?
Yeah, I do not envision him.
That's right. Yeah.
I do not envision him being available in the second round for our pick. I think that somebody will go and get him. His athletic upside is huge. He reminds me of Travis Kelce in a way with the athleticism. He's a pretty good blocker. He's not as good as Kyle Pitts is blocking, but he's very good. And there's another guy, Pat Freiermuth from Penn State, who I actually like a lot. I think he's better than Hunter Long, somebody else at Boston College, another tight end. Yeah. Hunter Long's tape was not very good. He dropped a lot of balls that are catchable, that were contested. In the league, especially for tight ends, every single ball is going to be contested for tight ends in this league. You're going to have to fight for those. And Pat Freiermuth was actually able to come up with a lot. But the reason that he's lower than Brevin Jordan is because he doesn't have the athletic upside. So Pat Freiermuth is another guy you can target in the later rounds, but that's why I really like Kenny Yeboah from Ole Miss. I really like this kid's tape. He's a complete opposite Jeremy Sprinkle. He's fast. He can get away from DBs deep downfield. I really like him a lot. So that's a guy I would love to target. Now, Emmanuel Chaguba, the host of the Back Row Redskins podcast.
Man.
He said, "What's our plan for wide receiver, Hall?"
Free agency wise, draft wise,
Anything, yeah.
Anything. Well, I'm definitely on the same boat as Reed, the same thinking path as Reed, where they're definitely going to double down, whether it's double down in free agency, double down in free agency and the draft, double down in the draft and bring some young guys in, which I'd probably put that last one like in the way back as far as like options. But I definitely think they're going to go after probably. I know all the reports are Allen Robinson is going to get franchised, which is kind of a bummer. So I definitely think they're going to go. Yeah, and Kenny Galladay. So I definitely think that they're going to go after guys like Curtis Samuels, who I've been on that train going back to the beginning of last year when I started looking at these free agent guys. Another guy that I brought up on Twitter a couple weeks ago is Will Fuller. I think that he's going to be on the cheaper side as far as receivers go, just because of the whole PED thing, the injury history. I think that you can get him for like a second tier 2 type contract for Will Fuller, and he can definitely be a burner on the outside with Terry McLaurin. And as far as the draft goes, I really, really, really personally like Elijah Moore. That's a guy that I've been watching for the past 2 years now at Ole Miss. I think that he can be a deadly, deadly slot weapon. He's versatile. He can run a lot of jet sweeps, which is a lot what Scott Turner loves to run in this offense. He can run a lot of those quick screens, a lot of those fade screens. And he's a great route runner. He has a lot of speed. So those are my plans. Hopefully they'll follow the guidelines.
Yeah, I definitely do believe that free agency is the way to go for one of these wide receivers. Now, one of the names that pops off to me, and I'm going to combine this because we have another question from Vincent, who said, how can Washington improve punt returners in the draft? But I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to say free agency. There was a guy that used to play for Virginia Tech named Isaiah Ford, who is now an undrafted free agent from the Miami Dolphins. I think that would be a guy that's going to be incredibly cheap. You could bring in as depth and could bring a great punt and kick returner for you off bat. So that is a guy I would love for them to sign, along with a Curtis Samuel or Corey Davis, who are not going to be as expensive. I know the Lions GM just came out and said Kenny Galladay is our number one focus for this offseason already. So I think that he's going to get tagged. I don't think Allen Robinson's going to be coming here. I don't believe that Chris Godwin's going to be available either. So you're going to have to go get with these lower round guys that make a lot of sense for you, that kind of vibe with your system. So Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis really fit, and then adding Isaiah Ford possibly in there, I would absolutely love. And then in the draft, like you said, with those high value picks, because there is quality wide receivers in this draft. Dwayne Eskridge, like you said, Elijah Moore. There is so many guys in this draft that you can go get.
Yeah, and another guy's going, not really, I guess you'd call it under the radar just because everyone's talking about Kenny Galladay so much. It's Marvin Jones. This guy's been a number 2 his whole career pretty much. Yeah. I mean, he would be the perfect fit to go opposite of Terry McLaurin. That's a guy that can be a deep threat. He can run those intermediate routes. He's a great blocker when it comes to the run game. He's a great guy in the locker room to have around. So I definitely think that a guy's going under the radar is Marvin Jones, and definitely should be a target and on the radar for the Washington football team.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic one, dude. Absolutely fantastic. I was going to say Marvin Jones, and I kept slipping my mind. And Will Fuller is a great one as well. I really do like that. Now, Tony Franchise's question for us, a great fan. He said, with Washington football linked to every quarterback, these seem to be the most realistic options, meaning Marcus Mariota, Cam Newton, Deshaun Watson, and Sam Darnold. He wants to know, how would you rank them 1 through 4?
It was Darnold, Mariota, Watson, and who was the fourth?
Mariota, Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, and Sam Darnold.
So Jameis, Cam, Sam Darnold, Mariota. My list would go Jameis number 1. To fit into this system, I would probably go Cam number 2, Mariota number 3, Darnold number 4.
Yeah, you know where I'm going to go with this.
I know.
And number 1, I'm going to say Jameis Winston. I will come out and say that right now. Number 2, I will say Cam Newton. 3, I'll go with Sam Darnold. And number 4 being Marcus Mariota. I think this fan base just has a fascination with backup quarterbacks. I even going back to the days in Washington, the old days when Mark Brunell was here, and Jason Campbell was the backup quarterback. The whole fan base was so riled up about Jason Campbell. And look, Jason was a good quarterback. It's just the multiple offensive coordinators, he needed the kind of system in place to get him. This fan base just seems to love backup quarterbacks because, like, you know, it's kind of that thought process that you could get a higher ceiling. When in reality, there's a reason why they're a backup. And that's why Marcus Mariota is last on the list for me, dude, to be honest.
I will say this, though. It's funny that you bring that up because you say that with the whole, like, Mariota and the Darnold thing. But as soon as you say that about Taylor Heineke, where it's like there's a reason why the dude went undrafted. There's a reason why the dude's been out of football. There's a reason why he was taking college classes, about to get his degree. But then you all of a sudden you didn't know what you're talking about. You see what he did against the Bucs? But it's just like, take a deep breath, calm down. I will say this though about Darnold and Mariota. I would definitely cut it off at those two on the back end, and I would replace that with Fitzpatrick, and I would put him as a third option. And Mariota and Darnold would be like my distant options if you can't get one of the top three I just named. What do you name?
Yeah, and look, Mitchell Trubisky, take that idea, take it around back and shoot it. Okay?
Oh, my goodness.
I don't even want that even thought about, dude.
Dog, they were kicking that around on the Junkies this morning. I know. Like, Jason Bishop is so set on. Then he started to turn the rest of them, except for, like, Cakes. Cakes has, like, some sense and is, like, some common sense. But he started to turn JP. He started to turn EB to be like, you know what? He might be a good bridge guy for No.
Absolutely not. The fact that is even talked about. You know, because, like, you look what Mitch had in Chicago.
He had Allen Robinson.
And he had a dual threat running game. And look, what did he do? Nothing. It wasn't besides running the football. That's all he did. He doesn't even look good.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So look, take that out back and shoot it. I don't even want that thought about. Now, Vinskin, JBG wants to know, what should we do at running back? Either in free agency or the draft. How do you address it, Hall?
Well, I think that we're good as far as not really good. I will say this.
He has the same mindset that the Colonel had, where we're injury away from being disaster.
I 100% agree with that thinking because you got to have depth. You got to always be thinking about the next couple, not the next couple of games down the line, but you always got to think about the near future as far as the distant future. But I definitely think with McKissick being under contract, him having the year he did last year, him being in the system year 2, I think he's going to bounce back and have another pretty good year out the backfield. Obviously, my guy, Antonio Gibson, Big Gibby, is going to be a star in the making. I think he's going to thrive next year in the system again. Hopefully, they get him a little bit more involved in the passing game, and then you'll really, really, really see him start to shine even more. But with all that being said, I definitely think that a guy like Kellen Balazs, a guy like Wayne Gallman, one of those guys that have been like that second to third type running back throughout their whole career, that can definitely come in and maybe expel Antonio Gibson and that can maybe like hit a home run from you here from time to time. They can definitely do more than Peyton Barber, which is run the ball and get less than 3 yards a carry. I definitely want someone, if you're going to bring in someone that can definitely, like I said, come in, expel Antonio Gibson, and maybe from time to time, you know, you can give him a whole drive or two while Gibson gets some rest, as opposed to a guy like Peyton Barber where it's like, all right, it's 3rd and short, bring him in. It's 4th and short, bring him in. Otherwise, you can't really use him. So, yeah, if they're going to upgrade at that position somehow, some way, I would like to see him go after guys like that.
Yeah, and look, through the draft, I really like Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis.
Yeah.
His tape explodes. He is used as a wide receiver, as a running back. He runs through tackles. He spins like Barry Sanders. He looks phenomenal. But look, you're most likely you're going to miss out on guys like Khalil Herbert, Trey Sermon, or Najee Harris. You're going to miss out on those guys. But there's other guys that could be Peyton Barber and then some. And then that could be Leonard Fournette, Tevin Coleman, and then Todd Gurley. I would absolutely love bringing in one of those guys because they're relatively cheap. They're not going to cost you a crazy amount of money like these other positions. So as a third running back, I would absolutely love one of those guys, in my personal opinion. Thank you, Vince Count. That's a fantastic question. Now, Jesse's question is, besides Holcomb, who returns next season at linebacker, and do they have a shot to start?
As far as anyone returning to start, I will say if anyone is returning, they're not going to start outside of maybe Holcomb. Deshaun and Hamilton's under contract.
I don't think so.
I don't even really know who's under contract as far as linebackers go anymore. Like
so Kevin Pierre-Louis is a free agent. Reuben Foster, I believe, is a free agent as well.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, like I said, we talked about before. I can definitely see them bringing back KPL.
Yeah.
On a nice cheap contract. He definitely fits in the system very, very well. The coaching staff knows him and loves him. I'm pretty sure he loved being here. I know after the season he talked about just kind of had the makings of the Seattle when they first got started, and with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. We just got to find that quarterback, obviously. But yeah, a guy like KPL, I could definitely see them bringing back. Reuben Foster is still a question mark up in the air. Me personally, I don't think that he's going to be able to get back to the level that they need him to play at or want him to play at to retain him. So, if anyone, I definitely could just see maybe Holcomb and a KPL.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think KPL is the right move there. And along with, I think that a lot of people are forgetting about Khaleke Hudson. The rookie
Hudson,
last year.
He's still on a rookie contract.
He came in relief and actually did pretty well. And I think a second year under Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, I think he will be a really good plug-and-play kind of guy. And I really do believe that they are going to attack linebacker heavily in free agency and the draft, like we talked about with Jock, Zaven Collins, or Nick Bolton. And then there's other guys like Pete Werner from Ohio State. I know that the Colonel sent me an article before that said hot take of the offseason. It said Baron Browning is the best linebacker in this draft. I was like, what? I was like, dude, that is ridiculous. I watched both their tape, and Pete Werner is a better linebacker than Baron Browning right now. And I'll tell you that right now. He wasn't even the best linebacker on his team, let alone in this draft. So that is a take that I just think is ridiculous. So I think that they are going to be heavy in that capacity. So KPL is the one that makes the most sense. Because what did Jack Del Rio say on the HTWR podcast? He said, speed, speed, speed. That's what he wants a linebacker. And Kevin Pierre-Louis having one of the best passing grades in the league last season, I think that would make a lot more sense to bring back and retain, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Especially going against a lot of tough teams next year. They're going to have pretty good to decent to great tight ends. You're going to need a guy like KPL who's going to be able to, if not cover them, at least stick with them and be able to give them a little bit of frustration throughout the game.
Yes. And then to finish up real quick, we'll make this really simple because we've already answered this before. But Mike has a question. With huge cap space being $53 million in total and a bunch of draft picks, how many wins represent a success next season, Hall?
Anything more than 7. I know Kyle's like they got to make the playoffs, like all the other stuff. But that I potentially, which most likely is going to be the new 17-game schedule. If they go 9-8 or better, I'm completely fine with that. Just anything more than 7, and anything above a 500 win percentage is good with me. So I guess that would have to be 9-8 or better.
Look, even with the first place schedule next season going against teams like the Chiefs, I think that you're going to have to win the division. I don't care about the win-loss record. They're going to have to win the division. That's where my mindset is at for it to be a success. You cannot take a step back and lose this division next year. You have to cement your foot in the ground and say, this is our division. We are now going to roll. I know this division, especially, not that many people have been able to be back-to-back divisional winners with how much turnover this division has. But look, Philly just hired a new head coach. The Giants have Daniel Fumble Jones there at quarterback as well. And the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, they're going to have to make some cuts around their team. So, look, you never know how things are going to shape out. Washington has to win the division. I think 10 wins is what's going to have to get them to winning the division. So, 10 wins or below for me, personally. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I'm sorry Reed had to go attend to his child mid-episode. A lot of things going on. I'm sorry, everybody. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. You're not going to want to miss Thursday's show. I'll tell you that right now. We have 2 phenomenal guests lined up for you. A former Washington player and one of the best draft and NFL experts that the league has to offer. All right, everybody. And then thank you to Matt Valdovinos, the drip connoisseur and O-line expert. I can't thank him enough for coming on. And everyone out there who voted for us for the best fan podcast. We really do appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We'll be back on Thursday. Make sure you don't miss it. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
All right, Washington football. Hey! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, Make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.